Thank you all for being here. We have organized this press availability with reference to the arrest and criminal charging of Philadelphia Police Department Homicide Detective James Pitts for his role in the 2013 wrongful murder conviction of a man named Obinna Onaya. A little background. What I'm holding here is a presentment. Presentment is the official document of a grand jury, and in this case, the presentment I'm holding was unsealed today by the Court of Common Pleas after some good and diligent work, not only by the 31st Philadelphia County Investigating Grand Jury, but by some of the people who are here with me with reference to this case. Let me acknowledge them. So in addition to having with us First Assistant Carolyn Engle-Temin, the Honorable Carolyn Engle-Temin, we have with us First Assistant Bob Listenby, and the Interim Chief of the Conviction Integrity Unit, Michael Garmisa, who was primarily responsible for this outcome, and also with him, Rebecca McDonald, Assistant District Attorney Rebecca McDonald, who is in our Conviction Integrity Unit and worked on this particular matter. What the presentment says, I will just state briefly, and then we'll hear more details from Mr. Garmisa, who primarily handled it. But what it says is that Detective Pitts is to be charged with 2 counts of perjury, which is a 3rd-degree felony, and 3 counts of obstructing the administration of law, a 2nd-degree misdemeanor, for allegedly lying. And what was he lying about? He was lying about his own violent interrogation of a man named Obinna Onaya in 2010. He was lying in his false trial testimony about that same homicide matter in 2013. Obinna Onaya, that name may ring a bell for some of you, because on May the 4th of 2021, the Court of Common Pleas vacated Onaya's murder conviction and dismissed all charges against him after Mr. Onaya spent 11 years in jail. This is a case in which the DA's Conviction Integrity Unit exonerated Obinna Onaya, who is likely innocent of all the charges that were brought against him. Obinna Onaya was the 20th individual exonerated by the Conviction Integrity Unit. There have been a total of 24 exonerations since 2018. The vast majority resulted from wrongful homicide convictions, and those convictions were originally obtained under former DA Lynn Abraham, followed by former DA Seth Williams. There are a lot of very interesting and very troubling details about this matter. Copies of the presentment are available, and the press release alone comprises more than 3 pages. But I believe the person most qualified to speak about the details here is Mike Garmisa, who's doing a fabulous job as our Interim Chief of the Conviction Integrity Unit and continuing the remarkable achievements that the unit had under its prior leadership, namely Patricia Cummings. But I think he is best placed to address all the details here and also to observe the line about what we can say and what we cannot say at this time and what would be appropriate. Once he has concluded, we will be available for questions. Mr. Garmisa?
Thank you. So the presentment is a document by the grand jury that was voted on that recommends charges, and they are allegations, and this defendant, like all defendants, are presumed innocent. The allegations in this presentment allege that Detective James Pitts, who was then assigned to the Homicide Unit of the Philadelphia Police Department, conducted an interrogation into a murder that occurred at the Glatz Jewelry Store in 2010 that was a murder that garnered a lot of press attention because the owner of the store, who had been a small business owner in the community for many, many years, was killed, and one of the perpetrators was killed during a shootout. The second assailant escaped, and as a result of that, there was an investigation. Onya was convicted primarily on the testimony of confession that we now know to be false, that he gave to Detective Pitts, and the grand jury presentment describes the physical assault that Onya had consistently claimed occurred and was the result of what resulted in his false confession. We were able to determine, and this grand jury found, that based on photogrammetry analysis, which is height comparison from video, that Onya was likely innocent and could not have been the perpetrator because he is 6'3", and the assailant who escaped was at most 5'11". The grand jury recommended charges related to the conduct in the interrogation room, punching with a closed fist, poking, or how Mr. Onya described it as doinking him in the chest, and grabbing him by the neck and forcing his head down between his legs. Detective Pitts is also charged with perjury for lying about those physically coercive interrogation tactics when he testified at a pretrial motion to suppress, when Onya claimed that his confession was the result of physical coercion, and also for false testimony at the jury trial where Onya claimed that his confession had been physically coerced. Are there any questions?
How long was Detective Pitts a member of the department?
Detective Pitts joined the Philadelphia Police Department in 1996.
So are you now in the process of looking over other cases that he handled to see if there was any other similarities, or this was not an isolated incident?
So there have been a number of litigants making those claims, and we are going to review them on a case-by-case basis. There have already been some convictions that were vacated, most notably the Honorable Teresa Sarmina vacated the conviction of Dwayne Thorpe in 2017.
Are there any other questions? Sorry. Yes, absolutely. If there are no other questions, I guess I just have a final comment. As someone who started in the criminal justice system in Philadelphia as a lawyer in 1987 and went through one administration after another in the district attorney's office where, frankly, certain kinds of illegal, violent, coercive conduct followed by lying about it were okay with the prosecutors I used to see, not all of them, but some of them, I cannot calculate the enormous damage that was done to a public sense of trust in law enforcement by those kinds of tactics. I remember when the Honorable Teresa Sarmina in 2017 did something that we all saw as being not only legally correct but courageous in the Thorpe case. For those of you who don't remember, she actually looked at the fact that there were so many incidents in which the same kinds of allegations were made involving the conduct of Detective Pitts, conduct about which there had been rumors in the courthouse for years. That's how she came to her conclusion in Thorpe. Well, I am happy to tell you that that is not the culture of this office, that will never be the culture of this office, and that we believe that every time we get to the truth, we get away from the lies, we admit wrongs that were done in the past by this institution and by other institutions in the city, then we increase that trust. And as we increase that trust in the community, we will have more victims come forward. We will have more witnesses cooperate. We will have more juries whose minds are open, that we are presenting the evidence, we are presenting the truth, and we are doing so fairly. That is only one of the reasons why this is so important. But kudos to Mr. Garmisa, to Rebecca McDonald, to the work of the CIU, to everyone who all along all these years said something was wrong, because something was really wrong. And I'm delighted to see that a Philadelphia jury is going to have a chance to make a decision about whether or not we are correct. Thank you very much.